Ready to go.
Okay, I'll call to order the February 11th, 2025 work session of the Oregon City Urban Renewal Commission. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Lori Arinello.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
Commissioner Doug Neely.
Here.
Commissioner Scott Wilson.
Here.
And Chair Mike Mitchell.
Here. Thank you. Before we get started, just a couple of quick announcements. This is a work session. We don't make formal motions. We don't take formal actions at work sessions. It's an opportunity for the commission to hear the staff report, to discuss with one another. So there will be, on this topic, there will be at least one more meeting that will be a public meeting that may or may not come to some conclusions, but that'll happen in the future. It won't happen tonight. And at that future meeting, we will take public comment. We don't generally take public comment at work sessions, but I think we all realize there's interest in this topic, and if I can just kind of get consensus from my fellow commissioners, I would like to take public comment tonight. I see a lot of head nodding.
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know, I would like to be able to hold it to 20 minutes or so for public comment, because we do have another meeting tonight, and also recognizing the fact that there will be another opportunity for public comment later. If you're interested in commenting, the comment cards are on the table over there. You'll need to fill out a card and give it to Mr. Wiley. Can I just kind of get a show of hands? How many would like to make public comment? Okay, looks like we won't have any trouble with a time limit. So please fill out a comment card, pass it to Mr. Wiley, and I will be calling on the people for public comment in the order that I received the cards. So what we're going to do, we're going to open the discussion first.
It's out.
Oh, yes, sorry. I should have also mentioned, we will use the 3-minute timer. You'll be at the podium over there to make public comment, and the timer is right on the wall over here, and we will stick to the 3 minutes. What we'll do is we are first going to hear the staff report, and then we'll take questions or asks for clarification from the commissioners to staff members. Then we'll take public comment, and then we will have discussion between the commissioners. Does that sound agreeable to everybody?
It sounds agreeable.
Okay. So at this time, we will move on to our discussion item 2A, which is Urban Renewal Commission discussion of Section 59 of the Oregon City Charter. And we'll hear the staff report, and I don't know whether that's Mr. Conkle or Mr. Kabaisman or both.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started. So you did receive the staff report in the packet outlining that back in 2012, the voters of Oregon City approved a ballot measure that added Section 59 of the Charter, and in 2016, in another ballot measure, the voters added subsection E to Section 59. All of Section 59, including subsection E, addresses the power and authority of the city's urban renewal agency, which is a separate entity from the City of Oregon City. Subsequently, the Clackamas County Court and Court of Appeals held that Section 59 was preempted by state law and has no effect. Included in the staff report is a portion of the decision on that matter. Recently, the Urban Renewal Commission updated the Urban Renewal Plan, and in May of 24 placed on the ballot the question of authorizing the agency to assume debt. The measure failed. The following outlines the Urban Renewal Commission with options to discuss concerning how to move forward with the district. The following options have been identified. Place a new measure on the ballot requesting approval to take on a certain amount of debt to complete one or more projects. Place a measure on the ballot to rescind the entirety of Section 59. Close the district. The district currently generates approximately $3.2 million per year. Closing the district would reallocate the revenue generated to all the taxing districts and would result in approximately $900,000 in new revenue to the City of Oregon City General Fund. Close the district and create a new district. This process would reset the existing frozen base and increment being collected. This method would not address the existing requirements of Section 59 of the Oregon City Charter. The Urban Renewal Agency could sue the City of Oregon City, seeking a declaratory judgment that the remainder of 59 of the Oregon City Charter is preempted and unenforceable. The Urban Renewal Agency could take an action and then file a validation suit, which would commence a proceeding in court and ask the court to examine and judge the regularity and legality of the action. The other renewal commission could act contrary to the terms of Section 59 of the Charter. This would not address Section 59, would not provide clarity on the issue, and is not recommended. Other options identified based on the discussion. So really, this was an opportunity to address that essentially urban renewal has not operated as urban renewal in Oregon City. And so how would the Urban Renewal Commission like to move forward to kind of address what essentially has been an agency that really hasn't done anything? We have approximately a little over $9 million in cash that's not being utilized. And so really do need some direction from the Urban Renewal Commission on what they believe would be the best way to move forward with either projects or the final disposition of the district. I think I've talked to most of you, like continuing to do what we're doing is not going to get us anywhere. So we really do need to make some decisions on how do we want to move forward. And so Bill and I would be happy to kind of answer any questions you have or help with the deliberation.
Questions from the commissioners?
I'll go with the report we got. I have a question. I think I know the answer, but we've got, we've got the discussion of Section 59 here. And what I wanted to do is just ask a question about item E2. Now, the property we had was purchased prior to this date, all the property we own. Is that right?
I'm sorry, all the property we own was
Yeah.
purchased.
Was before June 30th, 2016, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I don't recall buying any property after that date.
So I'm going to go to 2, and I think I know what the answer is going to be. But shall not borrow or spend or authorize the borrowing of spending of money to buy land. Well, let me read for the audience. Let me read E first at the beginning. After June 30th, 2016, the City of Oregon City, the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Oregon City, or any agency created in whole or in part by the city, whether acting alone or in concert with other persons, entities, or agencies. 2, shall not borrow or spend or authorize the following or spending of money to buy land or property for the purpose of urban renewal or the development of property not owned by the city. My question is this. That date of 2016, we purchased those lands before. Could the Urban Renewal Agency sell the property to the city and use its funding, increment financing, to make the land developable land?
Well, I think first off, E has been found to be unenforceable. So E isn't part of 59 anymore.
Okay.
So it's really addressing A, B, C, and D. Could the Urban Renewal Agency sell land to the city? Yes. It just is like it could sell it to a private entity as well.
But its money could not be used to make that land developable.
Well, I think that's where we get into the portions above it, where it talks about, like Section B, no bonded indebtedness shall be issued under this plan except in compliance with the requirements of the Charter of the Oregon City. Any amendment of the preceding sentence must be approved by non-emergency ordinance. For the purpose of this section, bonded indebtedness has the meaning defined for the term in ORS 310-140 sub 3, as that section of the statute exists on the date this section of the Charter is approved by the voters of the city. The statute defines bonded indebtedness to mean any formally executed written agreement representing a promise by a unit of government to pay another a specified specified sum of money at a specified date or dates at least 1 year in the future. So this is where, so if you wanted to make improvements to a piece of property, it would have to be less than 365 days, less than a year, or would have to go to a vote of the people, because you'd be entering into a contract to do some improvement to the land that would be, let's say it would take 2 years to do, right? So you're entering into a contract to pay money to do improvements to a land, therefore that would need to go to a vote. Does that make sense?
And that would include leaving tax increment financing out of it, or a bond out of it. That 1 year limitation applies to the 9 million or whatever that we have on hand also.
Correct, because you've got one component is taking on debt, right? The other component is entering into a contract of more than 1 year to pay is defined as bonded indebtedness, which is taken out of, I believe, the tax code, not the urban renewal code of Oregon Revised Statutes. So yes, even though we have the cash, right? The way I read this is we enter into an agreement that's more than 1 year, even with the cash on hand, that triggers a vote.
And that's the legal opinion?
Yeah, bonded indebtedness is an agreement to pay somebody a specified sum of money at sometime more than 1 year. And what's odd about this is it's sort of aimed at the classic urban renewal, which is we declare urban renewal, we borrow a whole bunch of money to make public improvements that increases the tax value, and that borrowing gets paid back from the increased tax revenue that's above the frozen base. We're in an odd situation that doesn't typically happen in that we have a surplus. So this provision, the idea of bonded indebtedness is how much we're going to borrow to improve the area. But what we're doing here with a bonded indebtedness, we call it bonded indebtedness, but in reality, it's using that $9 million. If we want to enter a contract to do something and pay somebody $3 million tomorrow, we can do that. The trouble is, that's not typically the way you do that in development. You want to see the development before the money leaves. And so, if we want to hire somebody with this money to do major improvements to an area, that promise to pay somebody a year in the future is what triggers a vote.
And unfortunately, the way things are, most projects of any size are going to take more than a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioners, what questions do you have for staff?
I'll pose a specific question. We own property on 12th and Main Street. I think we've regarded it undevelopable because of a stormwater line that goes through the property. Can we use funds from the Urban Renewal District to redirect that as long as it could be done within a 1 year period?
So I'm going to address just the charter. There's other questions about using funds and making sure it's consistent with the urban renewal plan, and presumably that is. No, I won't get into that. But in terms of the charter itself, if it's part of the urban renewal plan, yes, we can, provided we don't agree to pay money more than a year in the future.
Okay.
And so if it's a project that can be done in 3 months, then it becomes a little easier to do that.
I have a question on the legal options we have, the declaratory judgment versus the validation. What
Yeah.
kind of time frame would we be looking at for each of those?
It's always hard to say when you get into court, but validation suit would likely go a little faster. There's a provision in the statute about that in the statute that sets up validation suits that says it should be tried forthwith and judgment rendered as expeditiously as possible. So there's an advantage there. Okay. My guess would be the soonest would be about 2 to 3 months. More likely, I would say about 6 months is more likely, and if things go really sideways, possibly longer, but that's a general time frame. Just to be clear, we publish notice, certainly to the extent we file a validation suit, it would have to be done in public session. People would know about it and people could intervene, and typically you do get people intervening. I think I gave you the example of the Milwaukee, as just sort of an example to see what one of these look like. And I don't know if anybody intervened in that, but I know, for example, Metro did one when it used their funds to build the convention center hotel. There was a lot of concern about whether that was consistent with where those funds came from. They filed a validation suit and a number of people intervened in that. And so that ended up going to the Court of Appeals and probably about a 2-3 year process.
Okay. And then, I guess, secondary question is, what would it look like to theoretically close the district and/or reopen it? What's that process outline look like?
Yeah, I think we'd have to do a little bit of work to understand. If that was an option that we wanted more information on, we could go back and determine exactly what has to happen to close a district, what happens to the assets, what happens to the properties. Could there be a situation where properties are sold to the city, or are they just sold, those assets come into on top of the 9 million that's there, and then typically that then gets distributed back to the taxing districts that make up the tax increment financing. So we're collecting multiple taxing agencies. Percentages of that would be probably reimbursed back to them based on the percentage of their tax rate on the total tax bill, right? So Clackamas County is, somewhere between 16-17% made up of multiple agencies in there. That's part of your Clackamas County tax bill.
So
Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you. So I have a question just to better understand the role of debt within the Urban Renewal Commission. So assume the commission does take on debt and for some reason defaults on that. Who is ultimately liable?
I don't know I know the answer to that. It's
Okay.
probably spelled out in the urban renewal plan or in the statutes. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor McGriff, did I see your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to make a correction to my colleague across the table here, is that 12th and Main is not undevelopable. It is developable, but there's going to have to be some creativity involved in it. I think we had looked at some years ago a couple of projects that were going to put parking on the lower level, on the ground level, similar to the way the Willamette Falls Education Center is, where parking's down below and they were elevated. So that is definitely an option, and 2 proposals that came through the Planning Commission that never went anywhere when I was on Planning Commission had that particular option. So it can be done. That was all, just wanted to make a little correction.
Did I see another hand over here? No? Yes.
Yeah, I know we had this project to look at the conditions in the cove over a year's period of time. That was probably within a year period.
Correct. The contract was set up so that the work needed to be completed in roughly 11 months.
Are there any other questions for staff at this time?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, then we will move on to public comment. I have right now 4 cards. Once again, if anybody else wants to make a comment. Commissioner Smith?
So before we get started with public comment, I would ask the public for myself and probably the rest of us, if there's any one of these 1 through 8 that you support or don't support, I would love to know that. And is there a number 9 or 10 or 11? I'd like to know that too.
Good point. Okay, as I said, I have 4 cards. If you want to speak, you can fill out a card, turn it in, Mr. Wiley. First one up on my list is Dee Dee Dalsrud. And so please, your name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes.
You gotta click the, there you go, red light.
I'm a hot mic now. My name is Dorothy Dahlschmidt. I live in Oregon City over 50 years. I voted for urban renewal. I'm a strong believer in urban renewal, but in these times when we're losing so many rights and so many right to vote, I cannot give up one little right to give up my vote. So with that said, you already know where I stand. If it takes a fight, you know I fight. Anyway, cheers, thank you very much. I'll be at the next public comment. Thank you.
Next is James Nasita.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. James Nasita, Oregon City. Chair Mitchell and Commissioners, I appreciated Commissioner Smith's remarks this past Friday during the City Commission goal-setting session, and in particular, for there to be a dialogue between two factions opposed over urban renewal. I agree with him, and in fact, I invited a board member of the Oregon City Business Alliance to attend one of the informational sessions we had 2 Saturdays ago. I do want to express some concern, however, that putting the focus on the two factions needing to have dialogue not turn into a distraction or a diversion from the specific acts of government, including this commission and the City Commission, and the capacity of these bodies to inflame the divisions and ensure that the conflict festers and worsens. If the commission uses taxpayer money to go to court in an attempt to extinguish the citizen right to vote on urban renewal, that you are putting your thumb on the scale in favor of one of the factions. Instead of two factions staring each other across a ditch, you will widen that ditch to become a Grand Canyon and smother any possibility of dialogue. The litigation proposed with 2 levels of appeal will last into the 2026 election, I believe. The consequence of such litigation could be a citizenry so angry and mistrustful that candidates are elected on the promise to simply shut down the urban renewal program altogether. Fortunately, there are several options short of litigation. As I timed these comments, they do not fit into 3 minutes. However, if asked, I can elaborate. Commissioner Smith asked for items 9 and 10. I have 12, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I will ask, however, in closing, by asking you to ask Mr. Kabizman to explain the legal concept of latches. After he does so, I would ask you to ask the following questions. Why didn't the URC or the city challenge in court the right to vote provision in Measure 3407 way back in 2012 when it was passed by the voters? That was over 14 years ago now. 2, why didn't the URC or the city challenge in court the right to vote provision 7 or so years ago at the time and in the same lawsuit that had challenged Section 59E of the Charter? 3, why didn't the URC or the city challenge the right to vote through a declaratory judgment or validation shoot as now proposed in December of 2022 when Mr. Conkle and his city attorney tried to get this commission to remove the right to vote provision from the draft amended urban renewal plan? That's over 2 years ago now. And 4, why did this commission and the city commission wait until after the voters turned down Measure 3597 in 2023 to go to court to try to extinguish the right to vote on urban renewal? So that's what I can fit into 3 minutes. I understand the rules that if a commissioner asks a question, the time can be extended. So if someone wants to hear some more options,
Could you quickly go through those options?
Sure. So, first of all, the charter can be cured instead of extinguished. There's a number of ways to do that. If you're going to have another session, I will propose them. For example, you can make your own definition of bonded indebtedness. You don't have to use the state definition. You could change to be 2 years instead of 1 year. You could also change the charter to limit the application of the bonded indebtedness rule to amounts over $250,000 or over $500,000. Now, on your program you're considering for downtown redevelopment, and, building rehabilitation. Your figure I think you wanted to use was maximum $250,000. So you could exempt that amount from the charter altogether. You could just put bonded indebtedness over $500,000. That's an easy way to solve the problem. And meet the concerns of voters back in 2012 about, the $100 million debt limit that the URC raised the debt limit to in the plan. So you can certainly reform the city charter without clobbering it. Regarding the repeal option that has been mentioned, taking it back to the voters, this was a citizen initiative, and I don't think it's the role of the city commission to ask the voters to repeal what they did by citizen initiative. If it was passed by citizen initiative, I would say that, getting back to Commissioner Smith's point about dialogue, I would say that the onus is on the opponents who want to see this extinguished to pick up their petitions and have that dialogue with their fellow citizens before you go trying to clobber this in court. Let them take an initiative petition out to repeal it.
Okay, I think we'll have to move on at that point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It would be really helpful if people weren't so close to it because the popping is, be helpful if people were not like right on the mic because the popping is, with the new system, it's not helpful,
Next up is William
a
Gifford.
little painful.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is William Gifford. Am I too close? I'm okay. Good.
It's more like champagne.
I want to, yeah, that's fine. We ostensibly live in a country of laws. We live in a city of laws. And if there is an opportunity where we aren't certain of the legality of a particular action, it's incumbent upon us to find clarity regarding its legality. And I think we can talk about this all we want amongst ourselves, but until we have a judicial decision on whether it's legal or not, I don't know that all the discussion is very productive. Raising the question of why didn't we do this earlier? That's moot. That's history. That's in the past. Should we do it now? Yeah. We need clarity on this. And regardless of which way it turns, I think that we need solid legal standing before we make those decisions.
Thank you.
Oh, does anybody have any questions so I can drag this on? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, John Lewis.
Good evening. My name is John Lewis, and I live in Oregon City. First of all, thank you for having this open discussion. There's been, I've seen some dialogue that suggests many of you are underhanded and in the wrong pocket and trying to do something that's illegal here or inappropriate. And I think the conversation about what to do with Charter Section 59 is legitimate. It's been, I've been coming to City Commission meetings for 12 years and haven't been to necessarily all the Urban Renewal Commission meetings, but I've been to a lot of these meetings, and this topic and the confusion around the way that was written and what it means and whether it's applicable. The state of Oregon has pretty straightforward laws about the use of urban renewal, and there may be other agencies that are restricted with regard to debtedness, but none quite like this, and I haven't done the research to figure out how many of those other Oregon agencies are constrained like we are in Oregon City. So, it's been confusing to not only this Urban Renewal Commission, but at least 12 years before you as well. They've all been, until, you know, when this was put in place, it has hog-tied the Urban Renewal Commission towards ineffective. And if you can't get it resolved, and I think the right way to resolve that, by the way, is option 6. That's what I read in the staff report, which is to go through the validation process. I like that because that's how legal decisions get answered in a non-confrontational way. You as a city are spending your money wisely to get an answer from the state on this law. So, or not this law, this chapter section. So I'm advocating for that direction, and I would love to see it. I don't disagree about changing the charter in that, because that was a voter-initiated process, that it does, to me, make sense. If the state is saying, look, it's unlawful, but if they're saying a piece of it is lawful and it needs to stay there until you can change that through the initiative process, I would agree with that as well. But at least we would have some better legal understanding as to how we would approach with that if we needed to pursue another initiative process. Because to tell you the truth, this constraint, whether it's at the current limits or at the limits that were suggested in the prior testimony, that is completely insufficient to deliver a meaningful project for this urban renewal district. There's no way that the stars align on these development projects. They're just too challenging. Most of the developers that are dealing with it don't want to have to go through that public comment period. So I think you've got my understanding you've got an understanding of where I want it to go.
Thank you. I have no more cards. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? You can come up and speak now and then fill out the card afterwards. Last call till our next meeting. Okay. Then we will move on for discussion and questions and such with the commissioners. And who wants to dive in first? Commissioner Smith.
I want to thank the people, the public that is here tonight for this meeting. I wish you would all spoke. And I know that sometimes it's either you don't want to repeat something or whatever, and I understand that, or you just don't feel the need to speak in public. This group needs to hear from all of you. And I know Commissioner and former Mayor Doug Neely has been part of this conversation a long time, and some of us others on the table for maybe a little less time. I had major concerns about urban renewal when I was first running for commission in 2008, 2009. This is a different city. I have an awareness that urban renewal is a good tool, that it is probably the only tool that is going to get Oregon City to fulfill some of its dreams or what it could become, mainly because so many of the undeveloped areas that especially connect to tourism and the future of the city are tied into this district of urban renewal. However, I think this group has made many mistakes. Many mistakes by not having a more wide dialogue. And, I don't want to, I talked about this at the goals session. I won't go through everything I talked about at the goals session, but I do believe if we don't fix this, if we don't account for the public that still has concerns about urban renewal and the right of what the charter says, and if we don't address that, we're never going to do a project in this town. And that divisiveness has already happened just tonight. right? We can't cut people off because they're going a direction we don't want them to go. We can't then come up to the mic and make fun of someone that spoke before. We have to listen to each other. That's what we have to do. And that's why some of this hasn't been fixed, because you have to have a consensus of the Urban Renewal Commission, which we've never really had. We have to work as a group to fix it. If we want Oregon, and now there could be groups in here, there could be people here that say, we don't want urban renewal at all, let's end it. Well, we need to know that. But most of the people that I've talked to that have concerns about urban renewal or have concerns about the charter or the vote, most of them do agree that urban renewal is important. It's just some reason that they're still fighting it. We need to know that. We need to know that to fix it. And if we start a project like the last one, or we start any project and the first instinct is for one side to start a petition, we've already screwed it up. And if the instinct for the other side, as soon as we have a project, is to start doing some other counter, operation, then we've screwed up again. Both dialogues need to be heard, and we can agree on a project, I think, or some projects in this town that would work. That's the only way we're going to fix it. If we don't address that, we will be in a lawsuit, and this will go on for another 10 or 20 years. And 10 or 20 years from now, I don't want to still be driving by an empty mill site or an empty cove, and I don't want to drive through downtown full of apartments and a strip mall. I want to see what Oregon City can be. Something that we can all be proud of. And I think most of us agree that we can come up with that. So why the hell are we doing it? Because we're too busy fighting and filling out petitions and hiding behind people's backs and dismissing them, which this town has done for a long time. I knew probably the first 2 years of the commission, and former Commissioner Nocita could account for this. There was 2 years or 4 years maybe of sitting on this commission where no one cared what we had to say, because there was 3 votes. Now, when I took office after the turnover of that commission, I also was then now finding myself on the majority of the commission, and I could have said, screw you to the other side, and pushed on. But that's not how it works. You have to work together. And I'm going to tell you, this commission, not necessarily the Urban Renewal Commission, but this city commission is working better together than any commission I've worked on. And they care about this town, not to say that the former commissioners haven't, but this commission as a city commission, which is, the primary or the majority of this commission, the Urban Renewal Commission, we can have tough dialogues and we get through it. In fact, I'm shocked that if you look back at our commission goals retreat, the things that we were arguing about were pretty little in reality. I care about this town. I want to see some incredible developments in the places that we drive by every day. I want to support tourism and economic development, and I think most of you do. Let's work together to create a plan that we can be proud of, and let's stop arguing.
I guess I could go around the room and make everybody talk, but I'd love to hear from the commissioners.
I would personally like to explore legitimately what it would take for us to, one, find either a declaratory judgment or validation and get clarification so we have what this commission needs to move forward. And I would really like to see what it would take to either close the district and reopen it and do some thorough research of what that would mean for the body itself, and really have an understanding of the commitments we can and possibly could make for this organization. But I think we can't do so without clarification.
Good point. Commissioner Morrow, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I really appreciate the public comment that was given. And I I guess what I'm just wondering is what a dialogue between the two factions looks like. And I'm wondering how we do it in a way that doesn't just end up as more of the same, is my only question, because I think that sounds great, and that is an avenue that I would love to go down. It's just, I don't know if any colleagues have ideas as to what that might look like.
We could look at something that's facilitated.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would have to be
Yeah, a neutral.
a neutral
Yeah,
facilitator.
oh, for sure. Yeah.
Could we look at something specific, a project-related discussion on, because I think a lot of what I'm understanding, a lot of the hesitancy to support the Urban Renewal Fund is we have excessive, I guess, ability to bring in taxes and potentially spend those without a vote. So it would be nice to talk specifically about what types of projects would like to be driven by this commission, but also what kind of expenses we could look at. You know, if it's a matter of $2 million over 2 years and that's a limit people are comfortable with, that's a starter conversation. But I think the commission perhaps made a mistake in the $44 million price tag of the last project we sought, without details, without specifics, without, I think, an understanding of what comes from that.
Commissioner Neely.
Yes. One thing about the boundaries of the current Urban Renewal Commission is that it does cover a lot of land that everyone, I think, would regard as blighted. I understand the term blighted means something else, perhaps, to definitions in the state and so forth, but we can see some of those areas are blighted. She mentions closing and reopening. I think that's a possibility, but a lot of the area we cover, in fact, is blighted. The old mill site is also blighted. And if we want to consider the possibility of actually closing and reopening, it seems to me that might be a piece of land that could be included. Commissioner Smith and I were around for the Center Cal situation, and I think we have an issue there that we cannot deal with because I think there's a owner of a blighted area that thinks that property is valuable, far more valuable than it is, and has expected people to pay that amount of money. And I think that's why both attempts at some level have failed. But in terms of redefining the boundary, closing and reopening it, I think much of what we have would still come into that new boundary, but I think we could also include other areas that are also blighted.
Commissioner Wilson.
Thanks. So going back to something I had said at our goal setting retreat, right? The purpose of urban renewal is to do urban renewal. And I don't know if there's anybody here that can argue that we've been effectively doing urban renewal, right? That being said, you know, as we're trying to figure out how to address this, I do find, I mean, just based in my work I do outside of here, like high degree of value in mediated discussions, in bringing people together and being able to hash out like concerns, you know, desires, needs with that neutral party. And also at the end of the day, a mediated discussion does not address Section 59, right? As far as closing the district, correct me if I'm wrong, that just closes the district, and then if we decide to reopen it, it resets the tax base, and then we have to wait for increments to have funds available to use at that point. I don't know ultimately, right, the right, the objective right, the best thing to do, but what I do believe is making informed decisions. I think that there's some degree of just kind of...
Got a couple people suggesting they can't hear in the audience.
Oh, sorry. So I do believe in making informed decisions. And so I would support option 6 and just saying, hey, what is our standing? What does this mean? And I'm not saying at that point I would say one way or another, but I think just being able to make an informed decision is really important in moving forward. So that would be my suggestion, my thoughts.
Yeah, we can't hear you though.
Oh, sorry. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. So I'm not sure how much of that you caught, but what I was saying is I do believe in making informed decisions. And I think in order to make an informed decision, we would need to look at a validation suit on Section 59. And at that point, we can decide what to do going forward.
Thank you. Mayor McGriff.
Well, I'm going to, and I mean this with all due respect, that I'm going to pull a Rocky Smith and talk about.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, it is. For me, it's a thing.
It could be either.
Yes, because it's a good thing. Many years ago, I worked for the Urban Renewal Agency and felt that there, this is my own personal opinion at the time as staff, felt that, I don't want it to be that close to me, thank you, sorry.
Okay, you gotta
It's
speak
okay.
up.
That's all right.
Can't hear you.
I understand. So there was a plan that we had at that time, and I don't believe the plan had been really updated very much. And in agreeing with you in terms of how the project list at the time would help Oregon City grow, particularly in the tourism arena, because you and I agree everything is pretty much tourism in Oregon City. So the Urban Renewal Agency, in the last 5 years, updated the list, had input from various and sundry members of the public, and it was updated to put a list together of projects that would do exactly what you were talking about, Commissioner Smith. And you and I were in agreement about those particular projects and how they would help Oregon City in a variety of ways. Not only promoting tourism, but it would remove blight, it would bring buildings back that needed additional help that a private owner would not be able to do on their own. And so it's a partnership. So we've done that list, we've done that discussion, we've done the heavy lifting. We did some outreach. It was not fully attended, but I will say that between Mr. Gifford and myself, we attended every meeting. And we ended up hearing a lot from people about different things. I really feel that I'm not looking at it as, I heard somebody say factions. I don't really know about that. I think that there is support for urban renewal, and I think that there are at least 1 to 2 projects within the plan that could be put forth on a new ballot measure for approval with a certain amount of debt to complete the projects. And I think what I'm interested in is having a project where we have some success. And it's not that the Urban Renewal Agency hasn't had any success, because some of the buildings downtown that were done in conjunction with property owners down there have been improved. We have some areas in this hilltop area that were improved, not a property, but we created a safe environment at Beaver Creek Road and Molalla Avenue, which was, if those of you who've been around here for a long time remember the way it used to be, it was not really safe or good. And it's way better now and works, I think, exceptionally well. I think we have the opportunity, and I feel that the time is right for us to take a project, from our list and move that forward and get buy-in and concurrence from our community. I understand to some degree people's concern about being unable to vote on a renewal. I don't understand the comment about taking away people's right to vote because it's very specifically, I think comments are tied to urban renewal, not other voting. But I think that in hearing people's comments, without all of the distractions, and I think you mentioned puppets, pockets, other, what I feel are unnecessarily negative and totally untrue comments that have been made, that we all are in this together, like you said, Rocky, and I agree with you on that. I'm just not exactly sure how we get there, but I have lived here long enough that I would like to see more done. And I get comments all the time like, well, why is Canby doing this? Or why does this town do that? And why does this other community have that? Well, Canby has urban renewal. They have a very large industrial area that they've been able to attract folks. It's shovel-ready primarily. We have a lot of land that is not shovel-ready because it needs infrastructure, which is generally what somebody that's doing a project cannot afford to pay for. And that's where urban renewal would come in, to put in the infrastructure not only to benefit the project, but benefit the community as well. When the city years ago bought the Red Soils property, and I think there's some people in the audience who remember that, people said, oh, why are we buying that? Well, we bought it from the county. We made improvements to Beaver Creek Road and Malala Avenue. We sold out all the properties there. I think, were you on the commission? No, you weren't here yet, because we...
I hope not.
No, I hope you weren't on the... No, you weren't, because I don't even think you graduated from college then. That was the brainchild of
Because it wasn't ever supposed to be the county, it was supposed to be,
Yeah, well, with county...
the county took it all back.
We were able to buy some property from the county, and when we wanted to buy more, they said no. But we were able to bring some businesses to town, which have provided family wage jobs and more. One of the things we were told at the time when I was working for the city is that Beaver Creek Road was not adequate to get their businesses in and out. So now it's fixed and it's working well. Again, the property's sold. We were able to reinvest the money and benefit the city of Oregon City and the residents and the business owners and the community at large. So I think that we have an opportunity for everyone to participate, have their desires and wishes known about a project or two, and see if we can move something forward. And I support the path of least resistance, which I think is, as I said, put a new measure on the ballot requesting approval for a certain amount of money for a project or two. And I appreciate people taking the time to come to a meeting and be able to have civil discourse. And I hope that that can continue.
Thank you.
May I make one other comment?
Yes.
There was some discussion about a validation suit. The word suit, I think, creates all kinds of concerns, even if in the community, indicating was the Urban Renewal Agency trying to undo what the voters wanted them to do? I mean, that might be an implication of, even though that's not the intent of it, the word itself, I think, is of concern to me.
Good point. We just did a community survey a short time ago. And there was a question asked about what priorities the city should be pursuing. Number one on the list was maintenance of city streets. Number two was economic development, which really surprised me that it was up that high, because it's never been that high before on the survey. And I suspect that it's up there because people are starting to see things happening across the river in West Lynn, things happening in Wilsonville, things happening in Canby. Why aren't they happening here? And I think it's becoming a concern for our community that we are going to die on the vine if we don't have new jobs, job creation in this city. I was reminded of a comment that my friend Mr. Neely made to me several years ago. He said, it's the job of a city to manage population growth and pursue economic growth. And we are failing at pursuing economic growth. I agree 100% that mistakes have been made with urban renewal in Oregon City. Absolutely. I'm also convinced 100% we can fix it. We can put guardrails in place if we work together, as Commissioner Smith said. My concern is, it's also 100% true that Measure 59, or Chapter 59, excuse me, does not shut down urban renewal if you read it literally. But as a practical matter, it does. What developer will go to potentially millions of dollars of expense and potentially years of time creating a program to bring forward, to try to present to an urban renewal commission, having the uncertainty that it could be turned down in a public vote? The answer is they won't. And we've proven that already. They'll go across the river to Westland and get involved in their new waterfront project, which is going to have tax increment financing at the base of it, and does not have a public vote. They'll go to Wilsonville and help build their new town center project with tax increment financing and doesn't require a vote, or go to any of the other urban renewal agencies in the state, none of which require a public vote. None of us like uncertainty. Developers don't like uncertainty. And that's where we are without having legal clarity about Chapter 59. And so in my mind, getting that through a validation suit is a prerequisite to what we can do to then go forward with urban renewal. I think we are, frankly, wasting our time if we try to rebuild the program or put guardrails on the program where there's still that uncertainty, because I don't think developers will be interested in developing in this town with that uncertainty. I'll show my age a little bit here and then I'm going to stop. Years ago, there used to be some TV commercials with the Maytag repairman. And the Maytag repairman was the loneliest guy in town. Well, this is the loneliest urban renewal commission in the state of Oregon. And the long-term future of this city, we can't let that continue. So I'll stop there. Is there any other comments from any of the commissioners?
Just an addition of what you're saying in terms of proposals or development or what's happening around us. They are not things that the city can do by itself as its own entity. As the city of Oregon City, it's not financially feasible. We could enter into all of the partnerships we want, but when the bottom line happens, as you've stated, there has to be certainty somewhere. It's not if we build it, they will come. We have to help them build it, and they won't come. But we can be selective about who we work with. I think that was one of the concerns that Commissioner Smith and I had all along. And I was on the citizen side of the Cove Development Project, coming in and testifying about what we wanted and, what we needed.
Anything else from any of the commissioners? Mr. Conkle, any communications?
I guess what would the commission like to do next?
Well,
bring this back at a regular meeting?
I think we need to bring it back in a regular meeting. We need to be able to hear additional public comment, and we need to be able to come to some decisions. Commissioner Arenello had some requests for more information on some of the options, and it'd be good if we could bring those back.
Yep, so I heard close the district, more info, close the district and reopen it, what that would look like, as well as a facilitated discussion.
And advantages or disadvantages of between option 6 and option 5, the validation suit or suing the city.
I would maybe like to also see if we can host that facilitated conversation specifically regarding Chapter 59 once we get that clarification, to see maybe what guardrails we might want to pursue. I think that would be beneficial.
Before a public meeting or after?
After.
Any other information that commissioners want before our next meeting?
I was just going to say that the former Portland Development Commission has a lot of background and information about closing a district and starting a new district. Done it many times. I think they're in the process of doing a couple of them right now.
Okay. Any other communications?
So we typically do the hour before a regular meeting, so 6 to 7. Do we want to do that? I know we've got some, timing conflicts. I mean, I guess.
I know scheduling is tough, but I don't think an hour will do it.
Okay.
And especially with us coming into budget season, the scheduling will be tough, but
Okay.
I think it's important that we're not limited to an hour.
Okay. Okay, so we'll probably try and find a date then. It's obviously not going to be the next meeting on the 19th. And if it's not going to be before, I don't know, is it an hour and a half, 2 hours? What would the commission like? And I don't know, is 5:30 possible? No, okay.
Yeah, well, not for you. I think 5:30 is going to be very difficult for Commissioner Morrow.
Yep, so,
And I don't want him to be
understood.
excluded.
Okay,
from
so
the
we'll
conversation.
have to look for a date
Yeah.
and square out some time.
But I'd say the
Okay.
minimum 2 hours.
I think, yeah, I agree. 2
But no
hours.
more than that.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay, I would just like to thank everyone here for speaking and for being respectful to one another. We appreciate it. We will have a public meeting. We will take public comment at that time, and there won't, although we didn't run up against any time restriction tonight, but there won't be a time restriction on public comment at that time other than the 3-minute limit, but we'll take public comment from anyone who cares to. You can also submit written comment at any time, and I guarantee you we all read those written comments. So please do that as well. And thank you all for being here, and we're adjourned.